For thousands of years, people have depended on the services of a translator to understand documents written in other languages, and the services of an interpreter to speak with individuals in another language. Nonetheless, even though the interpreting profession has existed for such a long time, it is still often misunderstood. In this video, we'll look at what is involved in the job of interpreting, and how can you get the most out of the services of your interpreter. What is involved in the work of an interpreter? An interpreter's job is to make it easy for individuals who speak different languages to communicate, as if they spoke the same language. On the surface, this may seem simple, but in reality, it can become pretty complicated pretty fast. First, the technical aspect. The interpreter has to carefully listen to the message being expressed, remember the content, process the meaning, convert it to another language while maintaining the register, and deliver it fluently and monitor their own output for mistakes. This is a heavy cognitive load, but that's what they've signed up for, and most interpreters relish the challenge. Now, the main role that an interpreter occupies is that of conduit. As a conduit, the interpreter simply relays the message spoken by those involved. In a sense, they become the voice or spokesperson for the person speaking. Depending on the specific circumstances, the interpreter may be called upon to take up additional roles. They may be asked to be a clarifier, seeking to ensure that a message was received, or a cultural gateway, using culture-specific knowledge to provide context and ensure that a message overcomes cultural barriers. And in rare circumstances, they may even be called upon as an advocate, acting on their own to try and avoid harm to one of the parties. Each of these roles comes with increased participation and more involvement, and each role also comes with more responsibility. The goal of an interpreter is to occupy the least invasive role that allows effective communication, and ultimately their goal is to remain completely in the role of conduit whenever possible. Your interpreter's goal is to be invisible to the extent possible. And here are some key practices that interpreters follow to allow this to happen. 1. Always interpret in the first person. It may seem counterintuitive at first, but it's the industry standard for a reason. It helps remove the interpreter from the interaction, and it helps the parties communicate directly, creating less confusion. 2. Deliver the message faithfully, warts and all. That means not adding to it, not taking away from it, and not altering it. 3. Avoid interrupting the conversation to speak. When it is necessary for the interpreter to speak, for example, to ask someone to repeat themselves or to request a break, the interpreter should clarify that they are speaking for themselves. 4. Don't carry on side conversations that exclude the other party. It can really break down trust when one person feels left out and when the interpreter seems to be taking sides. Looking at these rules and objectives, it may be clear that interpreting with proper etiquette and technique can at times be like walking a tightrope. Whether it's to the left or to the right, a fall is a fall, and for that reason, interpreters exercise caution in their work. Now that you better understand the interpreter's role, what else should you know? How can I get the most out of my interpreter's services? The first thing you can do is introduce yourself with your full name and any nickname you may go by. That's a great way to avoid confusion down the line. Even though the interpreter is in a sense speaking for you, they aren't there to serve as your representative. Remember, the objective of the interpreter is to remain neutral, so it's best to avoid sharing things with the interpreter that may put them in a compromising situation. They aren't meant to keep things from the other party. Earlier, we discussed the rigorous process of converting and delivering an accurate interpretation, but there are some things that you can do to make this process go more smoothly. 1. Speak clearly so that the interpreter can hear you well. 2. Speak as if you're communicating directly with the other party. Avoid saying things like, "Ask him if he knows when that was." You can just say, "Do you know when that was?" 3. Avoid switching languages. When parties don't consistently use the same language, it can cause a bit of mental whiplash for the interpreter. who relies on a particular rhythm to handle their language processing responsibilities. And possibly most important of all, break up your speech into manageable chunks. This last one can be exceedingly difficult to follow, since it's quite a departure from how we talk every day. We pride ourselves on being able to fluidly deliver a stream of information, but an interpreter can only contain so much information at a time, even with the use of notes. So once you exceed that limit, it becomes more and more difficult to transmit your entire message. Imagine filling a pot with tap water using a cup. The cup can only contain so much water, so you have to pause from time to time to allow the cup to transfer the water. I mean, look at this. You're not going to get any more water in there. Even though your interpreter wants to be invisible, they also want to be able to do their job the best that they can. So, if things are getting too long, you may find that the interpreter tactfully interrupts or asks that you pause. This isn't to be rude, it's because they want to make sure that they express everything that you have to say. So please work with them and take pauses in your speech. Thanks for taking the time to learn more about interpreting. Hopefully the next time you work with an interpreter, it'll be an awesome experience for everyone involved.